Grand City Council workshop to order. Roll call.
Mrs. Billings? Here. Mr. Palone?
Here.
Mr. Sirianni?
Here.
Dr. Selly will be absent this evening. Mrs. Pastelli?
Here.
And I hereby certify that this meeting has been published in the newspaper in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act and posted as required by law.
Okay, our first item on our agenda tonight is we will have a presentation by Sydney Johnson about animal control. Mr. Johnson?
Good evening. I want to thank first, since this is the first public meeting that I've been at, is the Mayor Snyder, the council, Chubby Woolley, for giving me the opportunity to get back into public health and work running the health department here at the city of Long Branch. Been here about 3 months, and I can report that there's some very nice people. They're competent, and so far it's been a lot of fun. So thank you again for letting me get back into government, municipal government. When we talk about the city of Long Branch, I just want to highlight first it's the city. It's the animal control program could be the same, but the services and the challenges are going to be slightly different in the city urban environment than what you have in the rural Colts Neck and so forth. So we've got a nice couple pictures of the dogs that you'll see. And the first thing, I just wanted to give you a recap of the services that the city provides. Dave Roach, the former health officer, was justifiably proud of the animal control. Let me just recap. There's 3 parts or pieces to the public health department in Long Branch. You have vital statistics, you have the public health part component, and then you have animal control. So Dave was very proud of the animal control services. He's proud of the people that work there. You fund them adequately, you give them equipment, you give them protective equipment, take care of their health. So you have contract towns, you have Eatontown, Oceanport, Deal with its, I think it has Interlaken and Lock Harbor. So as far as statutory requirements, there's 3 that we operate under. Rabies control, general animal control services, and then there's the vicious or dangerous dog laws, so we enforce all those. We have 3 full-time animal control officers. They have to take a course, get certified, and become ACOs. Right now, 2 are full-time, 1's a temporary, part-time, because Guy Little, our 3rd person, is out on medical leave, and we don't know exactly what his disposition will be, so we have Mike Kearns, we have Debbie Nagel, and we have Mike LaGrasso. Those are the 3 ACOs that the city employs. Like I say, we have 3 vehicles. They respond 24/7 to all the Long Branch needs and to the needs of the contract towns. For veterinary services, we use Dr. Smith in Long Branch Animal Hospital, and emergency backup is Red Bank Veterinary. Those are for injured or sick animals. We take them when you need a veterinarian to take a look at them or do some kind of medical service. Impoundment facilities, we contract with the SPCA in Eatontown, and this year's contract is $115,000 for, that's just impoundment services for the animals we bring to them. Additionally, the animal control is overseen by on the state level by the New Jersey Department of Health, the Public Health Veterinary Group, which is Dr. Colin Campbell. So in 2015, they did a best practices thing that they said for animal control services, what in their opinion they needed to do. So they captured stray dogs as well as wildlife, but only wildlife when it is going to be a safety or health threat to individuals or the public. And what with wildlife, when they mean raccoons, skunks, groundhogs, foxes, and bats, and that's because those animals can contract rabies and are very frequently associated. If there is a transmission of rabies, it's usually those animals. We also pick up stray cats. When we don't have an owner, if we have an owner, we ask them to, so it doesn't go under us, under our budget, because every animal we bring over to the SPCA is $250. So if we have an owner, we ask the owner to bring the animal over there and pay the input fees rather than have the taxpayer have to pay it. We also, I mean, you have exotic animals. I know you caught an alligator one time. I saw that on the news. So, of course, domestic cats too, feral and free roaming cats, right? So when we do have a stray, we're committed to reunite it with its owner. Now, many people have the chips makes it easier, not just a collar tag and so forth. But that's our first line, is we try and find out who the owner is and get it back to the owner. Just to repeat, nuisance wildlife is not required, and it's they're associated, the nuisances with wildlife, as that's a division of fish and game under the DEP. So in addition, other things we do, investigate animal bites, 10-day quarantines of all animal bites, animal confinement, helping people if they need to get a rabies specimen to the state to be tested, and so forth. You have to patrol the community as well as answer to complaints. If you pick up strays, they're taken to shelters, the veterinarian, or disposed of in the landfill if they're deceased already, and there is a lot of roadkills, and we pick up the roadkills. Other things, the free rabies clinic, public education, and it's not required under the best practices, but we do have a geese dog that Debbie has that will go around to the parks where we have geese problems primarily, and she's training that dog. Tucker, right? Tucker is the name, right? So one other thing we have to do is the annual dog census, which is canvassed the town each year for dogs that are unlicensed. And over the last 2 years, Debbie, with the assistance of the other animal control officers, they've actually increased the number of licenses issued by 289 or 39%. So that's a time-consuming job to do that, to knock on doors, issue summonses if people don't respond. So just to recap, we meet all the regulatory standards of performance and all the what was included in the 2015 May Animal Control Best Practices. So next, things that we could do or might consider to do to enhance services. So many of you know that I come from Wegmans. I spent almost 9 years there. And one of the things they drilled into us is that continuous improvement, so that every day you're a little bit better than before. And that's, so we just don't want to stand still and say, hey, we have a good program, it's operating good. If we can, we want to tweak it and make it better. That's how I feel about it. And I think, you know, Debbie's involved in the Animal Control Officers Association. They want to become more professional, to get into continuing education credits and so forth. So I'm all for that kind of increase in professionalism, better services, and so forth. So one of the things we have in your city is a no-feed city regulation. It's under the Parks, Chapter 247. No person shall feed, cause, be fed, or provide food for wildlife within the city of Long Branch on publicly owned lands. And you also have about dogs on the beach and the promenade. No dogs or domestic animals. So one of the things with about the no feed is that potentially what you could do is make the language a little more inclusive or broader, such as, and this is only an example, to provide the feeding of wildlife and feral animals. So include feral animals, which are wild cats, things like that, where you may have a colony or something like that on public land or in any property owned or operated by the city. So you make it a little more extensive than just a parkland. There have been instances people have colonies of animals in city parking lots and so forth. So this would give us a little more teeth that we could, another tool that we could address those situations if it was in a parking lot or so forth. Now, animal cruelty investigators. Currently, you have paid for all 3 of our animal control officers, besides being certified as ACOs, they are all state certified as animal cruelty investigators. So you paid for them to get a training, and they submitted the graduation certificate to the state, and they have a certification from the state. And the good thing about that is you can lose that certification if you're not you know, if you have a problem, run into some kind of problem. So way animal cruelty investigation works now is we come upon it, or the police come upon it, then they call us in. We do an investigation and we refer it to the SPCA, which does the county for cruelty investigations. They always respond to high-profile cases, all right? These such things as these big animal hoarding cases where you might have 30 or 40 animals in a house, this kind of thing. And just by the way, there's been a surge in those kind of cases reported over the summer. The thing is that they have the option, we refer to them, then they have the option maybe not to take enforcement. So our concern is that sometimes we see animal hoarding, but we don't see that many cases. We see more physically abused animals that are untreated open wounds, fur infested with fleas, discharged from the eyes, animals that may be locked in cars, which we had this summer. The SPCA did take a animal cruelty, charge a person with animal cruelty in that case. But we leave it to their discretion when we have animal cruelty cases. What we think is, if you look at the literature, now animal cruelty is just started this year, 2016. The FBI reports animal cruelty crimes under its National Uniform Crime Reporting System. And the reason being is that animal cruelty is a red flag. It's a marker for potentially other violence that might be of a higher grade later on. So there's definitely a link. I asked Dr. Smith about it. When you look at the literature, you'll see that there's definitely a link. Here, it was reported 5 times more likely to harm humans. I'm not sure if that's the right number, but it is a red flag that there's a potential for other violence, human violence down the road. This kind of thing, the animals are helpless. It's up to us. It's very human poor behavior on the human's part. If we can intervene, all right, it's not just enforcement, it's intervention, education. If we can intervene and educate people, we may charge them with animal cruelty, but the thing is we can always downgrade it later on to misdemeanor type of thing, so forth. Because animal cruelty, the fines and so forth are very steep. Sometimes it's very warranted, I'm not saying, but the thing is you have some leverage to downgrade things too and get compliance. So you have the people trained. We do it on behalf of the SPCA. They do the enforcement, but many times we're assisting them by appointing them under a municipal resolution. It would give us the option to do it on a local level. And the last thing, we do require licensing of dogs. You may want to consider the licensing of cats also. The state has left the licensing of cats up to the discretion of the municipality, so they have not taken a stand, although if you look at their website, they do recommend for free-roaming cats and so forth to address those issues that you need a licensing statute. And the reason we need a licensing statute is because that gives us an owner. And, you know, then we have something to go to.
That gives us
An owner, you know, so we can have an owner, right? So the most common kind of complaints we see are a situation where a person has a colony of cats in their single-family home. These cats are free roaming, roam off the property. They damage the neighbor's property. So we get involved in these kind of disputes, all right? The neighbor says they have maybe 18, 20 cats. It's not uncommon. It's not just a small number of cats. These people tend to have a large number of cats. They create a mess on the people who try and keep their property up and so forth. So it brings that stress to them and possibly others in the neighborhood. And I'm not telling you anything that you haven't heard probably out in your campaign. You're out on the street, people pick you off. So I understand that you probably have been addressed by people with their concerns here. Licensing, it doesn't provide a ticket home. If we have a license, we can find out who the people are and give them that. It also, one of the things you could consider with the licensing is a number, whether it's 6, 8, I don't know, on the people. The licensing fee is not so important, the level of the licensing fee could be set at a minimum fee. But the idea of having a license would give us some control here for people. Right now, when we have these kind of things, we talk to the people. We ask them if they would like to give up cats. Sometimes they will give up the cat. When we take the cat, of course, it's costing the taxpayers money. If we can, we talk them into bringing the cats to the SPCA at their own expense. We've had situations where people have paid to bring the cats to the SPCA, and then we thought we reduced the number, and then they went and got the cats back from the SPCA. So It's not an easy situation for the people out in the field right now. What can I tell you? It does address a licensing ordinance baseline expectations of responsible pet ownership behaviors. So, in other words, you know, a finite number of animals that you can take care of, provide health, medical care. It's not just feeding the animals. There's everything that goes along with it to make them happy. Just what we all want, the best for our children, what we would want for our pets. And it does protect the safety and health of the general public by requiring rabies vaccination. Right now, it's not required for cats, domestic cats, so hopefully most animal owners of cats would get rabies vaccination, but it's not required. If you're a dog owner, yes, you're required to have it. So I think that's it for the presentation. If you have any questions, I'll be glad.
What would it take to incorporate the cats into being licensed?
You'd have to adopt, like I have included in your packet, a sample licensing ordinance from the Veterinary Medical Association. So it would just be like your dog licensing.
For some reason, I thought they were.
No, that's the thing. See, rabies in dogs goes back to the 30s and the 40s. Remember, Kill a Mockingbird. So the state at that time, the big vector for rabies was dogs. So that's why state mandated this. But in the interim years, you know, they never just chose to include cats. So that's on a municipal level. And you can, Monmouth Beach does have cat licensing, Middletown, but it's, you know, here and there, hit and miss. So it was never done
So can I ask you a question? You're talking about, you know, you're going to try to limit how many feral cats a person can have.
well, they're domestic. Feral is the wild cats when they, you know, go out in the wild and just
Well,
live in the wild.
I'm saying, you know, you've noticed that, I'm sure Debbie has seen, there's been some feral cat colonies with 15, 20 cats. Now, are you talking about limiting the number a person can keep like in their house? Or are you talking about people who have feral cat colonies and they can, okay, you can have 4 or 5 cats you feed outside. My question was, if we did that, or
Well,
that was you were thinking, what would happen to those other cats? I mean, at $250
No,
a
we're
head.
thinking, if you have a licensing ordinance, whether it be at the house or feral, someone's going to be the owner of those cats and has to license them, or we're picking them up, right? They can't just, right now we have cat colonies like, not too many, but they're on private property in 7th Avenue, none on public property that I know of. But, you know, people basically on their dumpster have dropped off a couple cats and then come by to feed them, things like that.
So, but I'm saying the expense to the city initially could be pretty substantial.
You're right. It
Could be
it would
pretty
be, it would be,
$250 a
I
cat.
would agree with that there would be, I can't put a number on it, but there would be an increase because we would be bringing more animals over to the impoundment facility, correct?
You'd almost have to have a civil penalty to enforce against the property owner to pay back the
Well,
city.
these aren't anybody's cats, these are just loose. that
Well,
people
understood.
feed, you know, in an alley, or
Yeah,
there was one down by St. Michael's,
Right.
there was just one up on 7th, and,
There's one on White Street.
Mhm.
yeah.
You know,
If
there's
it's
one
on-
on Morris.
Yeah. If it's on private property right now, we don't have any, you know, unless the owner complains, then, but we would go to them and say, it's your problem, you're gonna have to pay to take care of it. We can assist you, but if you reimburse us for the cost of the impoundment, we'll be happy to help you.
Mr. Johnson, how many residents bring an animal to the rabies clinic typically each year? And is it pretty constant?
Yeah, I wasn't here last year. We have it in January, by the way. I think it's the 7th of January for the upcoming 2017.
We had a little over 250 last year.
And is that pretty typical each year, about 250?
We're increasing now since I've been here. We
Is that a
have-
good number, or do you think you'd like to have more?
I'd like to have more. For the volume of the dogs that I've been saying, this year we're gonna put more signs out and canvas and try to get more dogs there, because the dogs I see in Long Branch, a lot of them are not up to date on shots, and they haven't seen vets in years, believe it or not, you know. So I'm gonna push for that, and we get a lot of bites.
Is the
and
dog
different-
population growing?
Ms.
I mean-
Neal, you just have to come up to the microphone so everyone can hear you.
I do think, especially now with all the adopt-a-pet and the dogs coming in from Virginia and out of state, people are, you'll see homes now with 4 and 5 dogs.
Yeah, I know.
Where it was always one or
A dog.
2 or 1 cat and 2 dogs. Now it's multiples now, even in apartments. And we got the dog walkers now, more and more dog walkers, you're saying.
Is
So-
rabies still a problem like in Monmouth County?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ocean County and Monmouth County,
It's endemic, so it's always present. It kind of tends to run in cycles where you'll have more wildlife and so forth. The biggest, vectors for humans are domestic cats that have been bitten by something or contract rabies, and usually these stray cats, and somebody picks them up, they're sick, picks them up, or bats. We do get bats in houses too. And one other thing just to correct about the rabies clinic, cats are free to get vaccinated too. It's cats and dogs at the rabies clinic, so we do both.
So we do have a rabies problem with cats in this town.
yes.
Well, we have
Yes,
in
we
wildlife,
do.
but we haven't had any human cases or anything.
All the feral cats are not vaccinated. They have no vaccination.
Right.
I don't think that's one.
And then because the wildlife
The-
likes the same
The
food.
raccoons and the skunks come at night. They feed with the cats. They fight. They can give each other rabies.
Right.
And now, say a little kid on somebody's front porch, a cat comes up, he gets bit. The cat's not vaccinated. We have to take the cat. We got to get the cat. The cat's got to go to the SPCA. It's got to be quarantined for the 10 days. So it's like kind of involved when there's a bite, and that we got to get a grip on that feral cat population somehow.
Generally, they're sent out for testing, so they avoid the holding of the cat. So we take them, euthanize them, and then they're sent to Trenton. They decapitate
Because
them.
once
So,
we identify a cat, that people can start the rabies treatment, which they usually
Right.
do with a cat because they're a high-risk animal. Then if it comes back negative, they discontinue the treatment. Of course, if it comes back positive, you'll continue with the treatment because you get a shot at, I think it's a series of 5 shots every 7 days. So they can start one. By the 7th day, we usually have the results back. But, they go through the rabies vaccination when you don't have to, but that's how we handle it now.
And the feral cat problem, does that contribute to any other animal problems in the town?
Well, they will eat wildlife, when they're in the colonies, so they say that birds, wild birds, things like that, to feed on wild birds, things like that. Are you talking like other?
Well, I noticed we have a lot more skunks in our neighborhood than I've ever seen before. And I think I saw, one time I saw one in broad daylight, so I'm assuming that skunk was sick, possibly with rabies. And I understand that feral cats and skunks could fight with each other. I mean, does that contribute?
Well, what you
to
see
our
many
problem?
times is people leave the feeders
Yes.
out, so they're
Yes.
feeding the wildlife too, along with their cats. This kind of thing. Garbage cans not covered, they're put out, for pickup. The skunks will wildlife will get into them. So we try to, tell people if you put your garbage out, have a tight container with a lid on it, this kind of thing.
well, because the cat feeders are feeding like in their backyard, so they're bringing the wildlife up to the residents. So now the wildlife
They're
aren't
associating
afraid of
people
you.
with food.
Right.
They're starting to lose fear.
They
of
like the
humans.
same food, fish. So, the skunks, the possums, and everybody and the cats are all eating together. And then they get used to the people, and now they're getting closer and closer. In Eatontown, we actually had a gentleman putting his garbage can out, and the raccoon came from behind the air conditioner vent and bit him. And it's because they're coming closer and closer. So the cat feeders are a big problem.
Well,
It's,
we discourage people from feeding wildlife that we can. That's one of our big things that, try not, you can see it with the geese, you start feeding the geese and
Right.
sure enough, you're gonna get a lot more geese in that area. It just leads to overpopulation ultimately.
So you think that the cat licensing would help?
Yeah, definitely, I do. I think that,
And
my personal
are there
opinion as a dog
ordinances?
owner and a cat owner, I mean, if I'm licensing one domestic animal, I should license the other domestic animal. I really think it would help. We're not looking at it as the revenue generator, because like I said, the fee could be set at a minimum, but it would help us get a better handle on the, free roaming cats.
Right. It would give me, my
We got some
partner's...
leverage to,
Turn that on.
All the way on the bottom.
to summons people is basically what it is for harboring
Yeah.
and on license. So when I have a problem like next to the DeStefano home, I can't do
We
nothing
can't
right
tell them
now.
anything.
Right.
We, there's no ordinance to enforce, but if we have a cat license ordinance, the cat has to have at least a rabies shot ordinance, or you can't feed a feral cat unless you can prove it's spaded or neutered and has a rabies shot. At least there's something that, but you guys have nothing, so we can't tell them anything.
What I'm hearing is we've got a problem in the city. And the way we've handled these in the past is that the department meets with administration, comes up with a comprehensive ordinance review that they believe will solve or address the problem, and then present it to you in a workshop for discussion, modification, and then work in the public session, so that we can get it done. But we understand the problem. I'd have to work with them to work on ordinances, civil, criminal, penalties, summonses,
Right.
the whole 9 yards.
Correct. It would kind of be handled just like the dogs, basically, on the DeStefano situation there. I would be able to summons that their animals are in their property.
Some municipalities, you're not allowed to have more than 5 or 10
Well,
animals.
that's what you've got to tell us.
Yeah.
We've identified the
Yeah.
problem, now you've got to give us the solution.
Some municipalities that you can't have more than 5 cats or 5 dogs, no more than 10
Should the number be 2 or
animals.
10
Well, that's
in
the-
Long Branch?
That's
That's
the
what we've got to do.
Yeah, that's the
Should we
discretion
come up
of the...
With a recommendation for the council?
Yeah, let's have
That's
that
what you've got to
happen.
do.
Okay.
Give us a
We got it.
recommendation on that, and we'll look at it.
Thank you.
But, does anyone have any more questions?
I just wanted to say, day to day, you guys all do a great job. I mean, I've
Thank
gotten
you.
calls for people with an animal that's been hit or
Thank you.
squirrels in a home, and you're just always right there, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll take these things under consideration. We'll wait to hear from our health
Thank you.
director.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll look through this material. We'll see if we can
Next time, bring
find
it
a
to us.
solution.
Oh, I will.
Thank you. Okay, that's the only thing on our agenda tonight, amazingly. So I need a motion to...
Oh, no, we were going to discuss the
No,
agenda.
I'm sorry. Review of the regular agenda. Does anyone have any questions regarding the regular agenda?
Yeah, the redevelopment, 20616, can that be brought into, back into executive session, please?
Yes, we can bring that in.
And can someone give me a capsule version of the deed
Yeah, the deed.
notice?
Yeah.
This is a requirement of Green Acres. With every Green Acres project, they require a checklist of items that they want to see before they will return the how many millions of dollars?
About 1.2 million.
$1.2 million that the city has laid out. So that this is one of the checklist items that they want. Therefore, once they get it and approve the balance of the checklist items, they will then begin the process to check to the city.
And this is the gas company?
This was Lemco's property, where the Manahasset Creek Park,
Manahasset Creek.
where there's a remediation in place. The reason that we had the issue, because this goes back to 2007, is the lots and blocks changed. So when that brought that to the DEP's attention, they wanted us to revisit it, and we did.
Where's the
There's a
location of this?
It's in Manahasset Creek Park. We took,
Oh, it
the
is.
southern part of the
Yeah.
park initially was the home of the AI. And then it went down in title, and we took it from an outfit called Lemco. They weren't a manufacturing operation, but there had been manufacturing on the site. So they were tasked by the DEP to clean it up, which they did. And there is a deed restriction, there's a restriction on the deed as to reuse. Everything we're doing down there is proper, and all the cleanup was done properly. But we have to file the deed restriction. So this is basically a resolution by you guys accepting the deed restriction. And then Jimmy can file it, and then Jake can give it to our folks, and we'll get the money back.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions about the regular agenda?
No, everything else is.
Yes, I'm good. How are you?
So I need a motion to close.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I need a motion to adopt a resolution to go into executive session for the following items. We have contract negotiations, Long Branch Partners, Pier Village 3, personnel matters.
Jake,
Where's Pier Village 3?
It was added on.
That's something I'm
It was
adding.
added on.
We're adding that on.
John
And
had a
also
couple questions.
redevelopment ordinance.
I was in-
And we also have personnel matters, public safety, police security,